My wife cheated while I was grieving my brother's death, then blamed me for neglecting her. I, 32M, was married to Teresa, 30F, for 4 years, but we had been together for a total of 8 years. We met during college at a friend's party, and from the beginning, I was captivated by her confidence and humor. Our relationship was filled with great memories, despite a rocky first date where I forgot my wallet and spilled wine on her dress. She laughed it off, and we ended up spending hours walking and talking. Teresa was incredibly driven, and I admired her ambition. She balanced her studies in business with internships and a part-time job, all while encouraging me to step out of my comfort zone. After college, we both landed jobs in the city, Teresa at a law firm and me at an engineering company. Life was good, and we soon moved in together, eventually getting married in a small, intimate ceremony. Our early years of marriage were filled with travel, dinner parties, and a lot of joy. We had a balanced relationship, valuing our independence while enjoying time together. However, everything changed when my older brother Mason was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. Mason wasn't just my brother, he was my best friend, my role model, and my rock during difficult times. I was devastated by his diagnosis and did everything I could to support him. I drove him to appointments, stayed with him in the hospital, and spent every possible moment with him. At first, Teresa was supportive, but as Mason's illness dragged on, she started to complain. She said I was neglecting her, and we began to argue frequently. Mason passed away 8 months after his diagnosis, and I fell into a deep depression. Teresa tried to help initially, but she grew frustrated when I couldn't return to our usual social life. She accused me of shutting her out, and things only got worse. Then, one day, I received a call from Lime, Mason's childhood best friend, who had been a great support to me after Mason's death. Lime had seen Teresa at a hotel with another man and had even taken a photo. I couldn't believe it. When I confronted Teresa, she initially denied it, but eventually admitted she had been having an affair with a coworker for 2 months. Her excuse? She felt lonely and neglected while I was grieving, and she blamed me for being emotionally unavailable. I was shattered. I told Teresa I wanted a divorce, but she begged for another chance. She texted and called nonstop, blaming me for her infidelity, claiming I had abandoned her emotionally. It was a nightmare, and I couldn't believe the woman I had loved for 8 years was trying to make her betrayal my fault. Despite my grief, I filed for divorce. Teresa continued to badmouth me to our friends, claiming I had mentally abused her by being emotionally distant. She even tried to claim half of my inheritance from Mason, which was devastating. During this time, I reconnected with an old high school friend, Olivia, who had lost her mother to cancer a few years earlier. Olivia understood what I was going through, and we began spending time together. It was refreshing to have someone who didn't push me to talk but was there when I needed to vent. As time went on, our friendship blossomed into something more. Teresa, however, wasn't done with her drama. She found out about Olivia and accused me of being a hypocrite, showing up at my house unannounced and screaming that I had moved on too quickly. I had to threaten to call the police before she finally left. Months passed, and the divorce was finalized. Teresa didn't get any of Mason's inheritance, but she fought me every step of the way. I was left exhausted, but I knew I had made the right decision. Olivia and I continued to grow closer, and she helped me rediscover hobbies I had given up during my marriage, like playing guitar and photography. Running into Teresa at a mutual friend's wedding months later stirred up mixed emotions, but ultimately, I felt a sense of closure. She apologized for her behavior, but I knew I didn't want anything to do with her anymore, not even friendship. Now, a year later, my life has settled into a new normal. Olivia and I are still together, and we even adopted a dog. I'm working on myself, focusing on my career, my hobbies, and being there for Mason's family. It's still hard to think about Mason and the betrayal I went through, but I've grown stronger and more resilient. Life after the divorce wasn't easy. There were days when I'd wake up and feel the weight of everything. Mason's death, Teresa's betrayal, and the entire future I had once envisioned with her, now gone. But over time, the pain began to dull. It wasn't that I forgot what happened. Rather, I started to focus on rebuilding my life. Olivia has been a huge part of that process. She's patient, understanding, and has this incredible ability to make me feel grounded, even when the world feels chaotic. We've been taking things slowly, which I appreciate. For the first time in a long while, I'm not rushing into anything. I'm learning how to enjoy life again, piece by piece. We've been spending our weekends exploring new hiking trails, cooking together, or simply watching movies at home. She's introduced me to things I never thought I'd enjoy, like yoga and photography, and it's been nice to discover new sides of myself that I had neglected during my marriage. Mason's memory is still a huge part of my life. I visit his family often, and we talk about him regularly, keeping his spirit alive. His wife, Sarah, and their kids have been such a great support system for me. In fact, I've taken on a bit of a mentor role for Mason's son, who's been struggling since his father passed away. We've been going to basketball games together and talking about life, which has helped both of us cope with the loss. Work has been going well, too. After everything that happened, I wasn't sure if I'd be able to focus on my career again, but the promotion I received has given me a renewed sense of purpose. It's challenging, but in a good way. The travel is an adjustment, especially for Olivia and me, but we've found ways to make it work. Our relationship has grown stronger as we navigate these challenges together, and we always make sure to communicate openly when things get tough. Sometimes, the thought of Teresa still creeps into my mind, wondering how things went so wrong, how someone I trusted with my heart could betray me in such a cruel way. But I've learned that I can't live in the past. What happened with Teresa shaped me, but it doesn't define me. I'm more than the person who was cheated on. I'm stronger, wiser, and ready to move forward. I've reconnected with some old friends, picked up hobbies I hadn't touched in years, and started living for myself again. It feels liberating to rediscover who I am outside of a broken relationship. For so long, I was focused on fixing things, trying to understand Teresa's behavior, or blaming myself for what happened. But now, I realized that her choices were never a reflection of my worth. They were about her insecurities, and her inability to handle tough times. Looking ahead, Olivia and I have talked about what the future might hold for us. We're not rushing into anything, but we've discussed the possibility of marriage and even having children someday. I never thought I'd be able to trust someone again after what Teresa did, but Olivia has shown me what true partnership looks like based on honesty, respect, and mutual support. For the first time in a long time, I feel excited about the future rather than scared of it. To anyone who might be going through something similar, know this. Healing takes time, and it's okay to take it day by day. You'll have setbacks, but you'll also have moments where you realize just how far you've come. Surround yourself with people who uplift you, and don't be afraid to walk away from those who bring you down. You deserve someone who loves you for who you are and stands by you, even in the darkest moments. As time went on, I found myself thinking less and less about the past and more about the possibilities that lay ahead. It wasn't that I had forgotten what had happened, but the pain no longer controlled me. Instead, it had become a part of my story, a chapter that I had learned from, but one I no longer needed to reread. Olivia and I continued to build our life together. We decided to move into a new place, a fresh start for both of us. The house I had shared with Teresa was filled with too many painful memories, and it was time to let it go. Moving in with Olivia felt different than it did when I had first moved in with Teresa. With Olivia, there was a sense of partnership, of truly being equals, working together to create a home. It wasn't rushed or forced, it just felt right. Living together wasn't without its challenges, though. There were small disagreements, like who took out the trash or how to organize the kitchen. But unlike my marriage with Teresa, these moments didn't escalate into bigger issues. We talked through things calmly, always making sure to listen to each other's perspective. I realized how important open communication was in a relationship, and it was refreshing to be with someone who valued that as much as I did. Our weekends were filled with adventure, hiking, road trips, and exploring new parts of the city. But there were also quiet moments that I had come to appreciate even more. Sunday mornings spent sipping coffee on the porch, lazy afternoons watching old movies, or evenings cooking dinner together. Olivia had a way of making the mundane feel special, and I realized that those moments, the everyday ones, were what truly made life meaningful. As we settled into our new routine, I started focusing more on myself too. I joined a local photography club, something I had always wanted to do but never made time for. I picked up my guitar again, relearning old songs and finding comfort in the familiar strumming patterns. It felt good to reconnect with the parts of myself I had forgotten during the turmoil of my previous marriage. Mason's memory remained a constant presence in my life. His family and I continued to meet regularly, sharing stories and supporting one another through the tough days. His son was still struggling, but our time together was helping him open up. I saw so much of Mason in him, and being there for him gave me a sense of purpose. It was my way of honoring Mason's legacy, of continuing the bond we had even though he was gone. At work, things were also improving. After my promotion, I found myself more motivated and excited about the challenges ahead. I started traveling more, something that had always intimidated me, but Olivia was always there, encouraging me and making sure I felt supported. The balance between work, personal life, and my relationship was something I had struggled with in the past, but now, with Olivia by my side, it didn't seem so overwhelming. About a year into our relationship, Olivia and I took a trip to the mountains, a place I had always wanted to visit but never had the chance to. It was one of those trips that I had imagined doing with Teresa, but looking back, I realized that Teresa had never been the right person for those kinds of adventures. Olivia, on the other hand, embraced it fully. We spent days hiking through trails, exploring the serene beauty of the wilderness, and nights sitting by a campfire, talking about everything from childhood memories to our hopes for the future. It was during one of those campfire conversations that we first talked seriously about our future together. Marriage, kids, long-term goals, it all came up naturally. I hadn't thought about remarriage since my divorce, and the idea of having children had terrified me after everything I'd been through with Teresa. But with Olivia, it didn't feel so scary. She made me feel safe, like I could be vulnerable without fear of being hurt again. Back in the city, life continued at a steady pace. There were occasional bumps, moments when insecurities would resurface or when the past would creep into my thoughts, but they didn't consume me like they once had. I had learned to sit with those feelings, acknowledge them, and then let them go. Teresa, for the most part, had faded from my life. She still popped up in conversations every now and then, usually through mutual friends or in passing at social events. But her presence didn't bother me anymore. I didn't need an apology from her to move on. I had made peace with what happened, and I had built a life that was stronger because of it. One day, as I was sorting through some old boxes, I came across a photo of Mason and me from years ago. It was taken on a family vacation long before this illness, long before everything changed. We were smiling, carefree, and in that moment, I felt a deep sense of gratitude. Losing Mason had been the hardest thing I'd ever gone through, but the love and bond we shared would never disappear. He had shaped who I was, and he would always be a part of me. Olivia found me holding the photo and sat down beside me. We talked about Mason, about how much he had meant to me, and how grateful I was to have her in my life now. She didn't try to fix the pain or offer any cliches. She just listened, which was exactly what I needed. As we move forward together, I know there will be more challenges, more moments of uncertainty. But for the first time in a long time, I feel prepared. I've learned that it's okay to be vulnerable, that it's okay to lean on others for support, and most importantly, that it's okay to let go of the past and embrace the future. Months went by, and as the seasons changed, so did I. What used to feel like endless grief and heartbreak slowly turned into a quiet acceptance. I had moved forward. My life wasn't perfect, but it felt more peaceful and balanced than it ever had before. Olivia and I had grown closer. We had officially moved in together, and I was starting to think more seriously about what the future might hold for us. Despite my initial hesitations about diving back into a serious relationship after what had happened with Teresa, I couldn't deny how right it felt with Olivia. She had proven time and time again that love didn't have to be complicated, painful, or filled with drama. It could be steady, supportive, and deeply fulfilling. One evening, we were sitting on the couch after a long day at work, just relaxing with our dog, Max, lying lazily at our feet. Olivia turned to me, her expression serious but gentle, and asked, "Have you thought about where you see us in the next few years? Really thought about it." Her question wasn't accusatory or demanding. She wasn't rushing me or putting pressure on me. It was simply a conversation about our future. And for the first time, I wasn't afraid to answer. I said, pausing to collect my thoughts. I know it's been a tough few years for me, and sometimes I still feel like I'm figuring things out. But when I think about the future, I see you in it. I see us together, building something real. I never thought I'd feel this way again after everything with Teresa, but with you, it feels different, better. Her face softened into a smile, and she reached out to hold my hand. "I feel the same way," she said quietly. "I want to take this slow, but I also want us to be on the same page about where we're headed." We talked late into the night about our hopes and dreams. Marriage was something we both saw in our future, though we weren't in a rush. We also talked about children, something I had never considered seriously before. With Olivia, it didn't feel like a daunting commitment. It felt like a natural extension of the love and respect we shared. There was one moment during the conversation that stood out to me. Olivia mentioned that she had always wanted to build a family based on mutual understanding and open communication, something she didn't always have growing up. Hearing that made me realize how much I valued the same things. We both came from different backgrounds, but we had similar desires for what we wanted out of life, a stable, loving home where both partners felt supported and valued. Over the next few weeks, we began making plans for the future. Not big, sweeping changes, just small steps. We talked about getting married someday and what that might look like. We discussed how we would balance our careers with family life if we ever decided to have kids. And most importantly, we promised each other that no matter what, we would never let communication break down the way it had in my previous marriage. Of course, life wasn't always easy. There were still days when the memories of Mason or the betrayal I'd experienced with Teresa would resurface, catching me off guard. But now, instead of feeling overwhelmed, I had learned how to navigate those emotions without letting them consume me. And Olivia was always there, offering a steady hand or a listening ear when I needed it. One day, while we were having dinner with Sarah and Mason's kids, Mason's eldest son pulled me aside. He had been struggling a lot since Mason's death, and we'd been spending more time together, going to basketball games or just hanging out. That evening, though, he had something different on his mind. "Uncle Mike," he began hesitantly, "I've been thinking a lot about my dad. I miss him, but I also know he wouldn't want me to be stuck feeling sad all the time. I guess what I'm trying to say is, thanks for being there for me. I don't think I would have made it through this without you." His words hit me hard. I hadn't realized just how much of an impact I'd had on him. In that moment, I felt an overwhelming sense of responsibility, but also pride. I was doing for him what Mason had always done for me, being a steady, supportive presence in his life. "You don't have to thank me," I replied, patting him on the shoulder. "I'm always going to be here for you, no matter what." That night, as I lay in bed next to Olivia, I reflected on how much my life had changed in the past few years. I had gone from the darkest place I'd ever known, thinking I might never recover, to a place of hope and healing. There were still scars, of course, but they were no longer open wounds. Olivia stirred beside me, half asleep, and whispered, "I'm so glad you're here." I smiled, wrapping my arm around her. "Me too," I whispered back. As the months continued, Olivia and I kept working on building our life together. We took more trips, explored more of our shared hobbies, and even began looking at houses that could one day be our family home. Things were moving forward in a way that felt right, natural, not rushed. And with every step we took, I felt more secure in the belief that I had finally found the love and stability I had always wanted. Looking back now, I realized that the pain and heartbreak I experienced weren't the end of my story. They were the beginning of something new, a new chapter, one where I learned how to truly value myself and my happiness, one where I found love again, not just in Olivia, but in myself. As we stood at the edge of this new life together, I knew that whatever challenges came our way, we'd face them head on together. Because love, real love, is about showing up every day, even when it's hard. And this time, I knew we were both ready for whatever the future held.